words of one friend in Yangon, spoken a while back, still resonate in my mind. He asked me, how can I make people feel what it's like here? Because beyond all the details of events and circumstances, he found that it was exceedingly difficult to portray the actual feel that life in Myanmar has taken on since the coup. My friend's question informs every interview we undertake at Insight Myanmar podcast, where we not only try to provide a safe and understanding space for our guests to tell their stories, but also to try to relate the feeling of what life there has become. We call on listeners to join us in bearing witness and opening up with empathy to the reality of the terror that now persists there. Thank you for joining us on this journey. I'm joined today by Simon, who is a doctor from Chin State and has spent much time in the region since the coup. This is a place that has been very hard hit. It's been very hard to get accurate news and information that's coming here. And Simon is going to update us about what he's been doing, what he's been seeing, and the current situation in and around Chin State and with Chin refugees and IDPs. Simon, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Inside Myanmar podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So before we get into the question of what's been happening in Chin State, since the coup, if we can learn a little more about yourself. So as far as you're comfortable in sharing about you, as far as is safe, can you tell us something about what you were doing before the coup?
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, firstly, as a medical doctor, it's a very privilege to be serving of my people with my capacity. And then, yes, I was doing my best to serving my people, especially I was in public health care before coup happened. And then, yes, I was trying to promote basic knowledge and especially primary health care, says how important of knowing of this basic health, especially like, for example, hygienes, and then how to make sure that we're going to make sure how to clean our hands and everything, because in the rural place, because of sometimes the children's and then the adult even they got this kind of sickness which is very things are very, very basic, but then sometimes that become very threatening to the life. For example, just simple diarrhea. The simple diarrhea can take many life in especially in Chin State, in the southern part of Chin State. However, after coming back to serving in my people and then letting them know how important of the hand washing, and that's prevent huge numbers of life from taking. So it was really great. And then also I was serving, as you know, that there was pandemic COVID-19 and also hit in Myanmar, also around the world. And even that time, I was able to serve my people and then teaching them the educations of how important of distance, and then making sure that they will be very aware of what kind of COVID signs, symptoms, and how to be, for example, someone may have, they may should not be like panic or do something, but to inform right immediately to health workers so that that place or that people can be safe. And then I was also doing so much of education, health education around the southern part of Chin State. But then also I was trying my best to promote health knowledge in the society, But then this coup happened, and then everything become like vanish. It's like blink of eyes, everything become like dreams that I cannot longer be with my people who I love most, who I wanted to be served them most. And then yeah, now just like I'm away from my people. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So let's look a little at Chin State for those listeners that aren't don't know so much about this region. This is the western part of the country. It borders with India. I've actually never been to Chin State, although a couple of my friend living in Myanmar for the years that I did, some of my closest friends were Chin, so I learned a bit about the culture and the background through them. I understand Chin State to be just enormously beautiful, just a tremendously beautiful place of hills and trees and nature and animals, also containing tremendous diversity. We say there's the Chin people or the Chin ethnic group, but actually there's so many different dialects and subcategories of ethnicities within that greater Chin designation. So really a tremendous amount of diversity among the Chin people. However, it's also perhaps the very poorest state of Myanmar, and there are real struggles with just surviving, and there's been for some time. So can you share a bit historically in the past several decades or however far you know about the people and the culture of what you would find in Chin State, what the people and the culture are, what problems they faced, and just introduce it for our audience.
Thank you so much for letting me express the people of Chins, and then the land of where I was from. So firstly, going back to history, the Chin state is something that before this independence, we were under the British colony, and then of course the Chin people were. We call it like a little government. I would say that in each village of the Chin, people have rule. It was ruled by, we call chief. Like they are like a tribe that they are called to be chief. Like in this term, like they are king in that village, and then they are rule the people by themselves. And then also like the tax that the chief should collect all the tax from his or her villager, and also whenever he or she ruled. And then we were very diverse, and then mostly in that time the Chin people worship like like rivers, stones, etc. But however, after colonizing of this British, the Chin become we received so much most of missionary from US and Britain, and then after that we are turning from that from that religions into Christianity, and then also we are very our Chin people are very united, and we are very loyal, and then we are very much, how do you call this, humble people. And then however, because of when British is going to give independence to Myanmar, Burma, and then Aung San, the General Aung San came to the Chin, and also other ethnic uh, minority like such Kachin, such Shans, and then he made sure that we will be joining with him to take this independence. After independence, we will be ruled by our own with the federal democracy. And then there was like he said to this chain and all these people, especially another way to say that the founder of Myanmar was actually Bama, Chin, Kachin, Shan, and we came together and then formed this union of Burma. However, whatever the promise and whatever that given in that agreement became like something vanished because of this Burma, especially near when they come to rule Myanmar, and then after that we become very much of pressures, and then there are no right for change, especially for minority. And even for example, if the Chin people, we are, no matter how we are talented, and then when we go to army, but then we are that our race become Chin, and then religion become Christian, and then we are not longer go more than more than major, or like, yeah, major, because of the religion become oppressive for us, and we have no right to express how we feel. And then I would like to say that Chin people, on like in Chin state, we are 80, more than 80% we are Christianity. However, in our own land, we cannot build our churches the way we want. We need to go and ask permission. And then in Chin state, most of the beautiful mountain and the beautiful area everywhere, these military come and make it a lot of pagoda, which is very heartfelt for the Chin people. And also in Chin state, we don't have proper this transportation. And then there's no proper transportation, so there's no transportation, there's no communication. So there's no communication, of course education become also very much hard. And I still remember that most of us, even myself, when I were in high school level, if I want to go to school and then I have to travel by foot at least 2 to 3 days. And not only that, I need to carry my own ration, and also I have to carry my books, and I have to carry my stuff. For example, like I will call one village, let's say village A. That village A doesn't have high school, so all the people of the student have to go to another village called village B. And then, but in this village B, they don't have high school examination center, so they have to go to at least the town. So the town and the village far, some like by foot at least you have to travel 4 days from morning sunrise to evening sunset. Like from 7 a.m. you woke up, and then you have to wake up by 5 a.m. and then you cook everything, and then you eat by 7. You have to travel all day along, and then you need to carry your own book, your rations, and your clothes, and you read to another village around 6 p.m. and then you cook there, and then you sleep, and tomorrow morning you continue in like journey for 4 days, and then you reach the school, and then that's where you're going to give for your high school. Because of the Chin people, we don't have so much of educated people, or because in Myanmar, all if you want to go to university, you need to get high grade, or another way to say high mark. And then because of that, most of Chin people cannot score high mark or destination. Because of that, we cannot go to good course such doctor, such engineering. And we don't have Chin people. We were very less who become a doctors and who become engineering long year, like 10 years ago, because of we don't have proper education. And in some village, they don't even have teacher enough. Like example, high school for grade 10, they have 6 subjects, and then supposedly government should provide 6 teacher. However, government could not provide, so they only have 1 teacher from government or 2 teacher from government. The rest, they have to find the volunteer people around your village. Even sometimes those who are not past grade 10, teach them to the grade 10. Just imagine that how that people can become or score great mark in their examination. And there is no electricity. So these Chin people often use just a candle or just a lamp just for study. Or sometimes they use, how do you call that, pine tree that can burn easily. And that's how they study. And also, uh, uh, so it is a very rural, it's a no communication, no transportation. So who become a doctors in Myanmar, where before was like who are living in city, who have a good family background, who can afford to go to a better like tuition or boarding. So they become who they are the one who become a doctor in future. And then when they become a doctor, of course, they don't want to go to rural because it's very hard. They never experience. Even they have to travel by foot, so they can imagine. Because of that, most of Chin people never see a doctor in some of them in their lifetime. And then when it comes to health perspective, when Chin people get sick, they don't have a medication, they don't have a hospital, so they need to travel for at least 4 or 5 days again, like the student did. And then how the sick people can work for 6 days. So the people carry him until the hospital they arrive. So some of people just die on the way. For example, imagine someone who is pregnant and going to deliver, but then there is a condition that caused her not to able to deliver and have emergency case, but then have to travel for 4 or 5 days and bleeding on along the way. When they arrive hospital, sometimes they don't even enough bread, so they just bring that body to their village. That's how people of Chin suffer. However, we never give up. We never ourselves look down. But then all Chin people are strive in education. We study hard. We try our best to become something for our people, something for our land. And because of that, if you look back to Myanmar history, we are the founder of Myanmar. Also, whenever revolution comes in Myanmar, we always in we always do our best for our country and our people. Even in 1962 and in 1980 and in 88 student uprising, we Chin people were there. In this 2021 revolution, we Chin are the one also going to, also one of the history that made in Myanmar. We may all know that. But then we are very suffer for so long, for so much. And then during that time in Chin people, what happened was that in village, the army came to the village to village when the military travel. The people of Chin have to carry their rations, their weapons, everything. We call it porter. We need to carry for them. And sometimes if there is no available or there's not enough manpower, even 80 or 70 years old people are being forced to carry or to follow with the army for the porter. So we are very much, have gone through with this hardship. But then, like today, we still have to do many things in Chin State. But one of the common that we have is that we all love each other in Chin State. We care each other, and then again, we are almost 100% we are Christian in Chin State. But then we have different, more than 53 languages in Chin State. But we all are united in one. Thank you.
Thanks for that. That's quite a bit of history, both of the people and of yourself to go over. You reference 62 and 88 as being years that Chin people joined the revolution. I would add to that 42, 43, World War II.
Yeah.
The Chin people were some of the greatest allies of the British and American troops that were fighting the Japanese, and that it was largely because of the Chin as well as some of the other ethnic groups that stood by the Allied soldiers that were behind enemy lines and helped to destroy supply lines and cause various sabotage. And also whenever American pilots would go down, it was always the Chin soldiers, when it was in that territory, that would go and look for the downed plane and be able to rescue the pilot. And in fact, at the U.S. Embassy in Yangon today, there's a statue, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves me right, of one of a Chin soldier during World War II, just honoring the sense of service and that they provided to the Americans that were over there. And this was when the Bamar originally were on the side of the Japanese and were opposing the Allied forces of the British and the American. And then, as you say, when Aung San and with the famous Penglong Agreement was able to get independence from England, that many of those ethnic groups, including the Chin, actually were not so happy about that. They were looking for other arrangements, and they're treated a bit better under the British rule than they were under Bamar rule. And the Chin resistance has been very strong today, and I've heard historically the reason for that is that there's always been a fierce independence in Chin State, that even in the colonial period, the British never completely, the word they used at the time was pacified them, that they allowed them some measure of autonomy and independence that wasn't in other areas, and so and of course there's the Tumi, that's the handmade flintlock rifle that Chin used for hunting. So they also have some prowess with that. And so there is this kind of independent fighting spirit that has come to characterize Chin State. And as we'll get into in a moment, once we start talking about the coup, that's been one of the theories people have put out of why the Tamada has been so brutal in Chin, is almost wanting to punish the to punish this independent fighting spirit that's there. As well as you mentioned before, the Buddhist proselytizing missions, that there have been enormous efforts undertaken by military governments to convert Chin people to Buddhism and bring by force to bring Buddhist teachings and monuments that are there, while also preventing the free expression of Christian or animist views. So there's that as well. That's a lot to unpack and go over. But one of the questions I want to narrow it down to lead to give to you now and start to look at is just in your own personal experience and childhood and young adult years growing up. What experiences did you have with the Burmese military or government in Chin State? How were you impacted? Did you see their presence in schools, on roads, in your hometown? Is there a particular experience or battle which remains in your mind, or some close relative that was lost? When you look at your own childhood growing up in Chin State, how were you impacted or aware of the presence of the Burmese military there?
Thank you. Yeah, you have quite explained well about the history of Myanmar. Yeah, and then I would like to also again explain about my childhood and how the affect the military. Yeah, number one, I would like to say is that of course I was a student in Myanmar. So when I was in high school, all the school that we were taught, especially history, it was a really lie, because we Chin, for example, we should also learn about ourselves. I mean, our own history. That is what our ancients, our great parents, and then these people, hero people, have done for our people. It should have been done in the book, but it's never written down in our course. But we always learn about something like Burma, kingdom like Jansita and so on, but they are never play a role for ours. But then we are taught to be forceful to be learn those things. Number one. Number two, I still remember when I was in high school, when the teacher comes to school and then we have to greet, like, for example, if the miss or the teacher comes in, and we often say that Ming Lava Siama or Ming Lava Sia. It was something like, okay, greeting of the teacher was a very polite way. I feel that it was good. But then there was one call that Burmese versions that we have to greet as something that greeting that we need to make our hands close together, like the way how they worship to their gods. In something like that, we are taught to be. But that was actually we Chin people never did. But then we need to do that. That was like sometimes we were offended, and then I still remember when I was in high school, I even got punishment because of that. Number two, you know that in Chin people, when I was in Chin State, I was very young and then going to school, and then you never learn about Burmese language. But then, amazingly, was that you are not allowed in my school. I am Chin, so I'm supposed to learn also my own Chin language. But in the school, we are not given. This is not permitted. So in our school, all we learn is that Burmese, English. When I say English, like subject, and we are taught to learn that. And then our teacher have to, sometimes we don't have a Burmese people. Then how would our teacher who taught us Burmese is not a Burmese people? They are just our native people, and they were not good enough in Burmese. And then there's also very hardship that I felt about how the thing is. But then my language, Chin language, we were only used to learn in Sunday school. In the church. Every Sunday, this is the time that we are allowed to learn our own language. Our own literature. We don't have any freedom of literature in Myanmar. And then also when I was in grade 10, I studied my grade 10 in a city which is called Hakka, is a capital city of Mission State. And then when I back to my hometown, I remember that in that time, a military came to the village. And then, of course, whenever the military arrived at the village, and then the village council have to announce or make some announcement that the villager have to be gathered. And then they will count the men that will carry all their stuff. Then army will be going like freely, nothing. Even he will not carry even his own bottles. Everything have to be carried by the villager. So they gather all them, and then they are not enough. So the manpower is not enough. So they have to ask one old man, and then he is like 70 years old. So I really could not look him to carry that heavy thing, so I help him. So I also I was experienced of that porter. Along the way, it was like there's no car, there's no highway in Chin State, especially in the village. The road was only big as wide as just 1 feet or 2 feet, and then from top to the mountain, you go down to the river and you climb another mountain, and you're gonna reach another village. It's like slope and height. That's only. Then you have to carry. And then I was carrying off the things on the way. Half of the way we arrived, and then one guy was not really feeling well. He was very weak, and then he fell down. And then even they don't have such of sympathy. The army, one of the army men comes, and then he hit on his neck, and then slap his face and say, "Bullshit! Oh, you are lying! You are lying! Do not pretend. Do it what I say. You are not supposed to be sleeping here. I'm not calling you for sleeping," something like that. He was like, abusing him because that guy was very sick, and he's not have strength, so he cannot walk any longer. So other people, villager, have to be help him for, and then carry his stuff. So it was like my own that I have witnessed. And also, whenever army comes to the village, we used to be very afraid. And then there's no such a rule for them. They come to one village, and if they want like to eat some, like let's say a pig, and then they kill it there, and then they don't pay, they killed, and then they let the people, the villager, cook for them. Or if they want the chicken, they took it without any even the word of please. It is like as if we villager are keeping off their assets, as if we are borrowing of something from them. That's how they deal to the people. And they always, even we look at them, why you look at me like that? What the hell are you? Something like that. So people are very afraid. We used to be afraid so much of this military. And of course, the villager, as I said, even myself, I was a student. And then I'm not Burmese guy. How can I speak influentially or very fluently of Burmese? If even myself, for example, I'm uneducated. So most of the village council who are working as serving as village council, they are not educated, but they are the one who are living in the village, so they have to serve the council. When the army comes, when they speak to Burmese, and if they don't good, they used to get slapped because of he's not good in Burmese, something like that. So it was a nightmare for me. And then I still remember that when in the school, if the military comes, we need to be really welcome them, very good way. And then sometimes we practice the way how to like almost like 3 days, 4 days we used to get practice just to say hello to that military, whoever that will come to the school. So it was really a nightmare that after I passed my grade 10 in Myanmar and going to another country and seeing the people, how they live. But in my country, especially in Chin State, it was really a nightmare. And then they used to come, like even Sunday. Of course, we are people of, we are Christian, so in Sundays our worship time. But if the military arrive, and then we need to cancel our worship service just because of that only. That's how they have pressure or press to our people in Chin State. And then myself. And then, of course, education was really, really terribly bad. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so lastly, I just would like to say is that health, of course, we don't have such health. I've graduated my doctorate degree in 2018. When I traveled some village, when they see me, one of old men told me that I was the first doctors that arrived to his village in his entire life. He is 80 years old. In 2018, just imagine how much more in way back in way back of the years in which they would look like. It was 2018. I arrived. I have traveled to one village, and then I was very warmly welcomed. And then one old man told me that I was the first ever doctor that arrived to their village in his entire life. He is 80 years old in that time. So it was something like, you can even imagine that. And then again, it was really, in the school that I said, we are Chin people, we have right to learn our language, but we are never allowed. It was not something we would only learn our own literature only in Sunday school only. And then whenever the practice, everything was come from the Buddhist base, yet we are not. And then sometime they will come to the school on Sunday, then we need to prepare and then wait and they cancel all the church services. So that's I would like to a little bit express. Thank you.
So you're describing this history of subjugation there and looking at the subjugation of education, of health, of language, religion. I mean, these are the core values of any human rights, any right to self-determination, as well. Of course, perhaps the worst is just the violence, just the a different people able to come to any village or any home and demand whatever they want, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And so I guess I'd like to ask a personal question, and I want to forewarn before asking it. This might be somewhat sensitive, so I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. But you're a Chin ethnic person, a Christian, and you have experienced a lifetime of this Bamar army coming and just terrorizing and bullying your people for as long as you can remember, and even hearing stories before you were born, I'm sure. And as a person, how do you deal with this internally? I guess the question I want to ask that I'm kind of dancing around because I don't know how to say it delicately is, how do you not hate them? How do you not live with a real hatred day after day and year after year for what this organization is doing, and then extending that to the wider Bamar group? Of course, those Bamar who are not in the military are not guilty of coming to your village and committing these atrocities. However, it's been well known that before the coup, there were many Bamar who didn't quite believe how bad things were and didn't quite understand or sympathize with the way things really were in ethnic areas until it's the same things and the same terror started happening in Bamar cities. And so in your community and you personally, how do you not live with a kind of hatred or extreme dislike of, firstly, the Tamada who's committing these atrocities, and secondly, even just the Bamar people who are not guilty of committing this, but also not quite understanding before the coup of what was really happening, based on conditioning and propaganda and other things, but still not really understanding what you were going through for so many years.
Okay. It's a really good question. Firstly, I think myself, there's to take it as my own personal question, because of my religion, I guess, because Christianity, that Lord Jesus Christ has taught us to love our enemy and then to pray for our enemy. I think that was one of the teaching, is that something in our, I think in our life that strengthen us to be, able to forgive something. That is one, I think, number one. Number two, actually, I don't know how to describe the things that when I was young, and then when I recalling back, when you asked me that question, when I recalling back of all my memory in my childhood, I think even we don't know how the meaning of hate, but I think it was actually the hate that we have because we don't really want to see the army, even we don't like the uniform. Until today, some of them, even the old people, when they see the green colors of clothes, they don't feel good at all. I mean, I think it was something that I would say that we hate, but then maybe also the fear because we were ruled by fear. They letting us to fear, and then that's how they rule us. So maybe this we have a mix of the feelings that we hate them, but then also we fear. So I hardly to describe it, but then for myself, one thing is that because of the religions that make us able to forgive them. Secondly, yeah, as I said before, because they lie, this military lie very well and make so much uh, propaganda. And then the history, because the Burmese and the most of the majority of the youth of now, today, they thought whenever we learn, we become like something real. Because as I said, from Geji to grade 10, we have, of course, the subject called history. But all the history written there was a lie. Everything about the goodness of the good things of Burma, that's all we learn. But we are not learning any of the history of the ethnic people or what happened. And we never learn about Aung San. We never learn about why Aung San died. We never learn about what happened after Aung San. We are never taught. And then even belong used to be say a word, but they did not really teach the people of Myanmar well enough or well educate them to know that because they hide those things. And then in Myanmar, in way back of 2010, in Myanmar, there are a lot of books are not able to read inside Myanmar. Some of books are sentenced for jail because sensitive, it are true. And because those books are history, which is real. And then if that the real thing, if people in Myanmar read it, of course, they will start to against to them. They know very well. That is why they prohibited some of the books. It's not available in Myanmar. Second, because of that, another way to say, the Burmese majority of Burma also being brainwashed. And then they thought this ethnic group, whenever we have this any army group or EAO, even most of Burma thought they are just, uh, they don't know why they are, why they become like this, why there's existing of this EAO. They never understood because they they hide all the history, the true one. That's why they are not able to understand. And then, of course, as I said, the military, like example, if you look back to Myanmar in Rangoon, there is a military camp, but they never out of military. The military never go out from the camp with their uniform, with their gun, roaming around to Rangoon city. They never did. If they go to outside, they become like a civilian, a very good way, a good way or a good manner way, and then they go to pagoda, etc. So in in the eyes of Rangoon people, they are very good and they are very obedient. They are very religious. But that people, the same people, when they come to Chin, when they come to Shan, they change. Their color change. They start to torture. They start to oppress. They start to make some things, unacceptable to the people. To, like for me, from the Chin. So that is why they never understand the Burmese. Most of majority of the Burma people never understood what really happened or what kind of mindset this military really have. Because with them, they are very good. As I said in Rangoon, it's very hard to if you look if you try to search the army in Rangoon city, it's very hard to find them. They are in the camp. If they go out, they dress as civilians and they are very, you know, well dressed, well speak, go to pagoda worship something, do a lot of religion stuff. So they are so much religion, something like that. But when they come to Chin State, they are totally different. So that is why the things happen. Number two. Lastly, uh, uh, um, I think now this day when I'm become getting older and then reading of a books and I understand the people of the mindset, and then I thought, oh, not all the Burma, the majority are not really doing these things, but the minority who are really thriving off the the rule and who really want to be dictatorship. Oh, these are the one people, not all of them. That's how I describe. So I think that three things I can say to for today. Thank you.
So you've characterized a bit about this relationship between the Chin people and the Bamar people, as well as the Tamada, over the past few decades. I want to ask what's different since the coup happened. So in the year plus since the coup was launched, how would you characterize Bamar-Chin relations since then?
Okay. After the coup happened, I think Burma people start to open their eyes and they see something, I think, which they never saw before, which they used to hear like a dream or a story. Because after the coup happened, when the uprisings take place, and then the people of their own Burma are the one who start to shooting to Burma. And then they come to your house, they arrest them, they harass them, they torture them, and then they never, I think, this most of the Burma never thought that can really happen. But then, of course, they see it now. In 2007, there was also we call Shuayang Donhayi. Even that time, Burma have seen very well. They should have aware of that actually also, because in Burma, I mean not only Burma, but in around Buddhism, one of the most respected and well, give respect is a monk. The monk also they call God. They are like serving them as a god. They worship them. They really respect. But still, when come to something about their authorization or something that comes to them, they don't excuse anyone. Even to their God, they kill it. They bully it. So in 2007, it was really happened, but I think Burma people not really realize what the true colors of this military really are. But in this 2021 happened, and then the brutal, and then this unhuman being, like they are like unhuman actually. Even I don't know how even I can describe. They're really evil. The evil thought, the evil work, the evil ideology were more described by themselves. And it so happened in this 2021 was also about COVID. People are dying for COVID. People are looking help. People are searching and asking for help because of the survival from COVID. And we all are trying, even across the world. It was really, really a matter of life. So people are doing their best. Organization, government to government, like even individual doing. But in Myanmar, just imagine they cut off oxygen, and then even they can still play COVID as for their weapon, just to kill the people of Myanmar, their own people. And then it was really, really, I don't know how even I can describe. So in 2021, that's what I think and I believe the Burma will be aware. From now on, they will see things clearly. Otherwise, I think it will be a big matter for ethnic group, because even now our Chin, not only the Chin, but Rakhine, Shan, Kachin, and all of us, we have been suffered for so long for so much, and then until today, this military are killing us and torturing us, even raping us. And we have been saying so much for like decades about these things, but most of the time we are being ignored. We are like always put aside. Our voice was never heard. But then this 2021 comes when the people of Burma get really die, really get tortured, really get suffer, and they realize a little bit more, I guess. That is also now they become more of, they are the one now shouting and then trying for this federal democracy, and then saying, and then some of them, Burma also saying, and then sharing in public that we should say sorry to our brother and sister of ethnic. We have made so much, wrong, and then we have interpreted so much, things in because of this being brainwashed by this military, and that we have believed them so much. But we never look for our brother and sister how they suffer. We always ignore them. But this time, we have to accept and then we need to apologize to them. That's what some of Burma said. And even some Burma have said some word that this day when we do this revolution, even if these ethnic people, even though if they don't join with us, we should not blame them because we need to feel their feeling. We need to see. We have to understand. I mean, that's what they say. So now our Chin people, we also fighting for our revolution. We are fighting to wipe out dictatorship in the land of Chin, also the land from Myanmar. And then if ever the Burma people understand, accept what our feeling was in before, and if they accept, we are also ready to be working with them. But of course, there are the doubt. We have some doubt because of these decades of what they have done to us by this military. But we still trying our best to serve and then to do something good for our people and for our nation.
Yeah, I can understand that. These are some really heavy things that you're dealing with. And I've also heard some of these beautiful apologies and self-reflections, largely from the younger Bamar generation. I'm just thinking about some of the podcast guests that I had on, and Pia Pio Joe, who's a doctor, a gay doctor from Mandalay who went and worked in Karenni State. And when I spoke to him last month about his experiences, I'm reflecting that he expressed a belief that there was just a hidden racism among many Bamar people that's unexamined and that's posits a kind of superiority over other ethnic groups that is
Yes.
that needs to be looked at and understood. And there's another Bamar activist I had on last year named Thautet, who expressed a similar thing, who just talked about his awakening of how racist he felt his Bamar community was and how much he was trying to change that. However, one of the things I'm thinking is that when this particular excerpt of Thautet, when he spoke at length on my podcast last year about his concerns of some of the inherent racism in his Bamar community and how he wanted to confront those and change those. And when we posted his podcast, we had some pretty strong pushback from some Bamar who were pretty furious about this kind of language and really resisting this, some of the things that Thautet was saying that about this underlying racism. And I think that there is a generation gap. And actually Thautet talked about that in his very interview. He talked about how it's harder for some of the older generation, the Bamar generation, to open their minds in the same way. And that there's, because of some kind of conditioning or some kind of familiarity, for example, if a Bamar Buddhist is raised with a deep understanding of showing respect and reverence to monks who have great karma and great power, that who are you to question them and who are you to critically think about them, and you should revere them and you should have good deeds of speech and body and mind. And so I think still today we do see, and even the older Bamar activists that I've seen, that there is a hesitancy to call out monks who are wearing the robes, but are also doing somewhat problematic things for the movement or with supporting the military. There's also, I think it's just an inherent human quality that people like power. I mean, groups like power. I think we're seeing that in my country of how difficult it's been to examine some of the white power structures that have been in place for so long, and looking at white privilege and how being a white person in America, that even if you're not actively engaging in some kind of racist activity, you're still benefiting from a racist system. And you're privileged in ways that non-white people aren't. And I think that probably something similar can be said in Myanmar, that even if a Bamar person is not directly engaged in some kind of racist activity, let alone some barbaric activity like the Tamada, they're still privileged in a way that non-Bamar aren't. And in so many of the ways you talked about, I mean, you can't practice your own religion, you can't speak your own language, you can't train to be what you want to be. If you have a health problem, you can't get access. These are all ways that being that being not part of the majority is punishing you in some way, and that others are benefiting and being privileged from. So where this is all going, the question I want to ask is looking at the power structures that have remained or that have changed since the coup. And I think we're both in agreement that the younger Bamar generation, Generation Z, has really been pushing this conversation and change. And they've done some beautiful things. There have been open apologies. There have been pushes for examination and looking at things they didn't understand before and wanting to know them and wanting to not just have a revolution that wipes the Tamada off the table, but also a revolution that is fair and free and equitable to all, not just ethnicities, but to women, to the LGBT community, to all peoples that can enjoy some kind of protection they haven't before. But what about some of the older Bamar leadership, the older Bamar democratic leadership, I should say, that might have some of these entrenched views more than others? They're certainly against the Tamada, and they're trying to. I think some of this older Bamar democratic leadership definitely is wanting to bring about much greater, more humane values that would be a safer and freer country. And yet there also could be some embedded, unexamined aspects that they're still not seeing how they're part of that power structure, that's privileging Bamar or Buddhists in some way at a disadvantage to others. And I'm thinking specifically of the NUG. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or comments or perspectives about this, because of the ministers, obviously, Dr. Sasa is a Chin minister who has some degree of prominence and respect and renown, and is in a primarily Bamar-led group. Many, not all, but many of the ministers do come from a Bamar Buddhist background. And so I'm wondering if you have, being a Chin person working for democracy and freedom and looking at what's happening on the ground and then contrasting it with some of the leadership and at a ministerial level, how have you seen Dr. Sasa as a Chin person, as a Chin leader who's representing not just Chin state, but all of Myanmar and the freedom and the rights of all people living in that country? How have you seen him welcomed into kind of the old NLD Guard and the old Bamar order? How have you seen him welcomed and worked with in ways that perhaps might have not have happened before, that was more privileged? Or have you seen some of the old ways repeating themselves and him not perhaps getting the same respect or cooperation based on being a minority? What have been your thoughts and perspectives in seeing that?
Yeah, okay. Firstly, I think I would say that as I'm a Christian, so in Christianity, it's there is Jesus Christ have teach us that love your neighbor as you love yourself. So loving is very important. So in love, there's no boundary at all. So if you love, and then there's no racism. If you love, there's no religion. If you love, then there's no I would say that there's no boundary at all. That is why Jesus loved the world so much, and then he came and then he gave his life. And then Paul said clearly that in Christ there's no Judaism, there's no Gentile, there's no, we all are same. I mean, we all are same in the name of Jesus. So meaning that Jesus loved. So in Him we all are same. I mean, that's a very important, I guess, that we have to play in our life, whether we are Christian or whether we are Buddhist or whatever we are. But I think we all can love each other. Loving I think, is never a bad thing, and all the religion have thoughts about love. But then in Myanmar, one of the things that I'm calling back in my memory and thinking was that these 6 and 7 decades past, the military ruled Myanmar with hatred. They teach how to hate, they teach how to fear, but they never teach how to love and respect and value. This is the problem. So most of these old people, they are like, in, I think, if it, just to say in DNA, I guess, even in their DNA, it's being pure of those, I think, those ideology. That is why they always think that Burmese is something superior than the rest of the ethnicity in the Myanmar. And actually, as I said, without Chin, without Kachin, without Shan, Union Burma were never born. That's we have to accept. This is the fact and the truth. Was we come together, we come and unite, and then we form, and then Union Burma was born. That is why we can able to get the independence from the British. So if at that time General Aung San was representing of Burma government, so Che, if it didn't agree, I think below won't really happen. If Shan didn't agree in that time, I think it won't really happen. But I think our leader in that time, they love each other, they care each other, they believing in each other. That's why they can come together and then make a new nation, so-called Union of Burma in that time. But in this day, the military train and the military lead us in the wrong side, the dark side, just to maintain their authority and then just to rule the way they like. So if people are more divided, we more weak, and then they can rule over us. That's what their strategy have been played for this many years. That is why nowadays also most of the old generations were stick into hatreds. That's why they cannot accept the fact for this. But new generations like Generation Z, because nowadays in Myanmar, in after 2010, many things become more open than before, and then these generations able to read so many of books and things, and then they learn, and then they able to see the world and the humanity, the value of humans, the right of human being, which is not really played very well in my country, sadly. That is why now, when this coup happened, most of the Generation Z are able to see the the true and the fact, because because of their open their heart, because they open their eyes. That's why they can able to see and they can able to accept it. But the old people are, they are really really hard to accept those things, because of in their mind, in their heart is think that they are superior, they are right, something like that. That's all. Everything was already done by the military, as it was their plan. Number one. Number two, about Dr. Sasa and then and UG perspective. I think progression is if we want to make something progress, I think it's it's need times. It's take time, I would say. For example, I myself in my childhood, uh, I never dreamed to become a doctor, but then just certain things. But then I would say that when I was in 10 years old, I could not be able to become a doctor because I was still young. I need to pass many of class. I mean, I need to attend many classes that I can become to a doctor level. So, in order for me to become a doctor, I need to study very hard, and then I need to display very well of myself, and then to be, focus on my study. Otherwise, I may not become a doctor. I went to study, I went to a university and then dreaming to become a doctor, but never study every night, going out and joining with someone else and then drinking alcohol every night. I think I will never become a doctor. But if I want to become a doctor, I need to patient and give times that I have given for 7 years to become a doctor. So I need to sacrifice 7 years for earning of this degree. And also not only giving of my time and patience, but also I need to work hard and display myself and believing in myself. That's very important, I guess. That's apply in the country as well. So now NUG also trying their best to come to rule inclusively. That is why they are trying their best to invite some of ethnic, people like Dr. Sasa, and also if you, and UG, if you look at in the ministerial level, there are like at least 4 or 5 of ethnic people are invited, and also in the deputy ministerial level, and also inside of this ministry, I mean in NUG, and also they also come up with this so-called NUCC. In NUCC also, NUCC is a platform where all people can come together and work together. Not only just NLD party, but also this Generation Z, CDM, EAO, and then like-minded parties, and then and so much of them are coming together NUCC. And then this is also we need to remember is that this is a revolution period. So thing is that in revolution period we should not so much focus on the authorization, but rather we need to look for the fact and the truth and what's important. We need to really identify what are prioritize. We need to list down things that to be prioritized, and then things to be do by followed by things. Because if we make it this revolution longer, we're gonna weaker. But if we make it a short period of time, and then we will win it. Because this military has so many of sources in there. So it's very hard to, fight with them. However, we have the heart of the people of Myanmar. We have the people in revolution. In military side, only money and then authority are with them. The rest is not with them. The willingness, the love, the care, everything is with the people of Myanmar. But one thing the NUG have to do is that they need to focus more of what's really need to be done in first step, or other way to say, first priority. And then when you say about the play role of Dr. Sasa, I think still need of something more to do in NUG itself. Yeah, there are many things that to be comment, but again, I say it's too early to some time to make just a judgment, because everything needs time. If you want to become better person or better qualification or better thing, then you need to give more time. And then also NUG itself has to take some time. At the same time, like I have give myself, if I want to become a doctor and then I need to discipline myself, I need to be focused. And NUG also likewise, they have to have some of period of time to make it more changing stuff, transformation, I would say that. And also at the same time, they need to be displayed, they need to be very focused, not just, running and waving around, I think. Thank you.
Thanks. That's really good to hear and to get your thoughts and background on it. Let's move now to looking at what has been going on in Chin State since the coup. You have been you've been very active in obviously supporting the medical needs everywhere, both personally as well as coordination, along with IDP camps, which have been growing, and growing a network throughout Chin State to be able to respond to some of those atrocities. So can you take us from the very start for listeners that really haven't been following or placing what exactly has happened in Chin State since February 1st? Can you give us a general overview of how Chin State and Chin people have been impacted and have responded since the initial coup?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, going back to 1st of February in 2021. So looking back in that time, of course, in that very moment, in that February 1st morning, no one thought that can happen. It was like a nightmare, actually. No one believed it. And then that's happened. The Chin, we are like, what? Looking, we're not really sure, really. But then starting from Rangoon, slowly, for street start to happen. And then, like, things are growing. And then whenever that's happened in Chin, it's directly involved. We're directly involved. In Chin State, we have township, we have 9 townships. So, like, Haka, Tantalan, Didim, Falam, Twinzan, Kampala, Palawa, Mujupi, Minda. And yeah, I think that's all. I think I'm not mistaken. That 9 of them, and those all 9, they all participate as much as the way they can in each township, and or even some village. They are very like 30 household. Just imagine, only 30 household. Even I say in population, maybe there are 300 population in that village. Even there's no military, there's no government office, nothing. They are just in that little village. Their lifestyle is just going to the farm, going morning farm, coming back evening, and then they're happily living that way. Like, there is a village lifestyle actually to express it. Even that, when they heard that Myong Lai took daughter the Myong Lai Anatenge, when they heard that, they're really mad, they're really angry. And then what they do, they went to, of course, they heard it from someone, and then they go to where they can able to access the internet. They look at, they say, oh, in Rangoon and Chin, in Hakka, in Mindat, already people are uprising, and they hold the paper, and they written like something like they shout, and how do they do, and they learn it, and they come to their house, I mean their village. Then the youth, they gather together, and then whenever they find even the wood or whatever available thing, they write there CDM, like we have to do CDM, etc. They write it whatever they get able to get from internet, and then they bring it, they start to perform it exactly like where in the town happening. And then they took a picture, and then they send to some of, even they don't know where to send, so they share it to like some of who can they trust and who can be able to publish for them. And then when they send it, those people can send to, like in Chin State we have some media like Chinland something, so they send to them like to them, and then this is how even in the media they were appeared. That's even my own eyes I can able to see them. So what I mean is that we really involved in 100% in this coup. And after that, in Mintat, even they bring their all even their to meat and their guns, everything, and they come to all the old men, even 90 years old, even whoever can walk, they do it. Even little boy or little child, even 2 years old, they still go to with their mom and their parents to the whole day on the sunny day in the just to stay there and to shout. All they have done. And then after what happened, the coup, and mean that the fires start to happen, and then of course all most of our government services like health, education, most of the government employee, they start to join in CDM, and then most of Chin this government sector become like clapping. And then, as I said, just imagine that in Chin State until 2020, our health system is not really good. We don't have really good, we have only, in Chin State, we have 9 townships. So, if I'm not mistaken, only 10 or 12 hospitals we have across Chin State. So, all of them start to shut down. And then just imagine, you cannot stop the patient not to sick. So, where they will go? There was really challenge that we face. And then our children, all of them could not able to go to school. And then later on, every day, even myself, I always go to every day. Morning I woke up, what I do, I prepare, and then I walk and shout the whole day on the way, and then shouting that we don't like this Myanmar. And everywhere across the Chin State. From, as I say, from 2 years old to 90 years old, other way to say whoever can walk and whoever can be able to carry by their parents, they all are involving in this in the streak. And then after that, the military start to shooting them and then capturing them and then torturing them. The Chin people, what they did, all the youth, they gather, they say we need to make something for our self-protection. What else we have? And then they decide, okay, we need a training. So they join CNC. Actually, we Chin people have this a EAO group we call CNA, CNF. So they join to them and they get trained. And then when they get trained, from 14, almost like 15, 16, whoever can able to go to jungle, they all want to join to this military. I mean, we call it Chinland Defense Force. And then all the youth that start to joining, not because they are fun, but because they hate really this military. And then they don't want to see them. They wanted to wipe out from Chin State. So they all join. And then some of them, their father have guns. And they say, Papa, father, please give me your, some of them are like, in Chin State. Before going that, in Chin State, uh, what we call this, how do you call this? When you would like to adherence from your parents for your asset in Chin State, one of our very, very values that is to meet and that this is something that we have to be very, this is something that we are getting from special gift from our parents or our great parents. So we very value that. But then what the youth people said, the young boy, father, I'll take this one and I'll join CDF. Your parents say, okay, as long as you do something for our country, go on it. So most of people start to join. All girls, I would say that all boys and girls join to defense force. And then even if you look to statistic in Myanmar CDM, we the Chin people are the highest number of who have joined in this CDM. And also Tandalan town, almost the whole town was burned down and it become ashes. Because we all fight, all the town people fight to the military. The military knows that how to make their heart break. So we Chin people value our houses because this is something that, one of our most treasures in Chin. Houses like something a treasure for us. We very value. They know it very well. Later they destroy. It's like they destroy our heart, so that we're gonna feel pain, so that we will regret and then return to them and say sorry. But of course, we will never say that. They burn it down, we become more stronger. They make more torture, we become more, resilient. Resilient. So that's what's happened in the past 1 year in Chin State. And of course, education sector collapse, health sector collapse, almost entire of government in Chin State collapse. They can do nothing. The military can do nothing at all. Because of that, now in Chin State, if you're looking back to Chin State, Tentang town burned down, Razwa, and then Mindat. And then until today, there are ongoing fires. Battles between SAC and our Chinland Defense Force and across Chin State, everywhere almost. We are fighting. And then, what happened to the Chin people? We don't have hospital. We don't have all our nurses, most of our nurses, our doctors join CDM. Whoever are Chin people, they join it. So we don't have hospital. So the people get suffer. So most of people die. And then, like last year, I may have shared you a story that I don't know. In refugee, old lady who is about 90 years old, all the villager run to a border of to India because the military come to their village and start to shoot and then start to burning around. So they all afraid. So they all entire village run to this Indian border, and that old lady also no choice. So she have to follow along with her fellow. And then when they arrive to refugee camps in India, after some time, she gets sick, and then no have. In that time there was no treatment, there's no healthcare, so she passed away. But before she passed, she talked to her great son that she requested. In Chin people, our body we are very value. So whenever we die, we really wanted to carry our body and bury it in our own land. That's something in nature, things that which Chin people have. So she requested, no matter how, even though there's no more people in our village, please do not bury my body in the foreign land. Please bring me to my village and bury me in my village. That was her last wish. And then she passed or she died. So her great children was very upset and very sad. And it was really, really, how do you call this? Hard to decide. He is afraid to go back to his village, but he cannot also bury his grandmom in the foreign land because it was the last request or the wish from her. So there's no choice. So what he did, he he took a motorcycle, and then he sit in the front, and then his grandma body he put it in his bag, and he tied with a rope, and then of course the dead body is flopping. So the leg, the hand is like is floppy. So they tie it along with his body, everything. So they won't be floppy. So they tied it with the rope, very tight. And then the evening in 7 p.m., no 8 p.m., he started to travel alone to his village. In daytime it's dangerous, nighttime was more safer, so he drive for 10 hours. And then when he arrived to his village, no one was in the village. He and his grandmom dead body only, and he buried in there. Right after he buried, he came back to India. It was like, heart touching story. That's what really happened. Not only her, but there are many more that's happened because of this coup. The Chin people, almost half of the population, become IDP and refugee, and then most of the students become uneducated. Now, most of Chin people are not schooling for almost 3 years from 2020 because of COVID. And most in 2021 to 2022, when we look at back to our mortality rate in Chile State, our elderly mortality was increased rocket height because of they have to run here and there, and because of that, uh, they pass away. And then my uncle just passed away in 2022 March, first week of March. Actually, he also was uh, uh, he was 80 years old, and then he was in the village, and then of course I have away from him, and then almost 1 year he got sick, and then I cannot contact him. They don't have any connection. I always think that he was healthy, but almost 1 year he was not feeling well, not able to check up, and then become kind of malnourished because he don't eat properly. As you know that in the village there's no medicine, no appetite, no food, not good food. So and then after last year, I mean this year in early January, most of his village also military arrived, so they're afraid. Then everybody start to flee, and then he also come to he also, he was elderly, so the villagers said that you have to be evacuated first. If it's something good, then you need to come back. And then when he come to the border, he start to cough almost like non-stop, and then he will become very sick. And then when we come to India, and then we admitted in one of us in India, but it was too late. And then he passed away. So there are many of people who's supposed not to be passed away just because of lack of health care. Most of people die, and even pregnant women. The mortal in since the in 2021, 2022 mortality rate becomes so much high because we don't have this health system. And then teenage marriage and teenage pregnancy become high because our kids are not schooling for 2 years, and then they are living in the house, I mean the village or in the house doing nothing, and that's become so much effect of our youth who are supposed to be our future of leader and future star actually. But now it's become, a challenge for us, for our people, because most of our kids cannot able to go to the school. And then, of course, now the school are going on, but most of our kids still don't want to join to the school because they are CDM students. So that's really what's happened in our Chin state for these 2 years.
And you mentioned the growth of IDPs, internally displaced people that are having to flee. This is happening all over the country. Villages being burned, villages being attacked by air, compounds, monastery or school compounds that are being taken over by the military to pursue operations. Just one horrible thing after another. In the case of Chin, I understand that there have been many Chin people who have crossed the border into India and have settled in camps in Mizoram. And this is quite an interesting development. We had recently we had an interview with an international relations expert on Myanmar, and he noted this, saying that this is really indicative of the federal democracy that India is, because on one hand you have the head of state of India, Modi, who is really quite supportive of the military and not so much the democracy movement, and has actually openly resisted the call for refugees. And yet at the same time, this expert, Hunter Marston is his name, he mentioned that Mizoram, not just at the local level in terms of the people living there, but even the local infrastructure and politicians and such, have been quite welcoming to the Burmese and especially the Chin refugees that are coming in, despite the different policy at the head of state of the country. So I'm wondering if you could share a bit about what you know about how the Chins are getting to India, how they are settling there, how they're being taken care of, and what is happening in that border region.
Okay. So in our Mizorams and our Chin state, most of our culture, belief, and then also language are same, even our literature. So no matter even this national boundary make us separate, but our entity cannot separate. That's also one of the very reasons that now the Mizoram government welcome warmly to our people, especially Chin. And then now, Mizoram has officially from the states accept us and welcome us. Because of that, currently across Mizoram, we are allowed to settle. So for example, we are allowed to make our refugee camp in the village, the border. And then, but here, sadly, thing to say is that these local people are warmly welcome the people or the guests from Myanmar who are refugee, but themselves has a hard time of living in, because India is also not really a great country in terms of economy. So in the village level, the economy and the incomes are quite low. So they are living good for themselves, but it's really tough or hard for them to share to others. So whoever comes to refugee in their village, in the community, they are being welcome and then allow them. But when it comes to food, materials, it's really hard. So the people of Myanmar or the refugee people need to still look for the aid, especially for humanitarian aid, for shelter, food, medical support, and also education, which is not Mizoram state can do. All they can do is that allowing them to stay safely. So another way to say that Mizoram states provide the security and the safety of the people, and they give them the place where to settle. But when it comes to shelter, food, medical, and education, they cannot provide. So they need to look for themselves. So because of that, NUG and then also other local NGO and INGO are pushing them to come to help to the border here in Mizoram. At then some point they can do, but in some point still we have many challenges ongoing in refugee camps because they come here in last uh, October. I mean, sorry, last in March, April, and then slowly the refugee numbers are increase slowly by slowly, and now we are going soon to monsoon or rainy season. And then most of the refugee are living in the not the house, but in the how do you call this? They are the floor is just only the ground. They use the floor, and then for the roof they use tarpaulin. So if it comes to rainy season, if it heavy rains occur, they will not have a place where to stay because it will flood. And then if there is some storm, and then that can wipe out their tarpaulin. And if that, and then of course it's become very challenging. So now we have so much worry for their shelter. It's still really challenge thing. Secondly, education. The children come here, and then as I said, we are some of people are living here in Mara, some of them are alive, but again in Myanmar, in Chin, as I said, there are many languages out there. But who come here, who are Mara and living in Mara, they have no much problem. But who come and live in Mara, but they are not Mara, they are other tribe. They have language barrier, and their kids have also language barrier. And then when come to school, Myanmar system and India system is totally upside down. I mean, totally different. So our kids cannot learn and then stay with local kids, so they have to separate. But the school are only one, and then sadly, the community are also helping them, but then they cannot do so much things. So what they do is that before the local kids go to the school, the refugee kid have to wake up early morning, go to the school, and then when the kids of the local go to the school, then they need to come back. When the kids of the local people come back, they have to go to in evening. So it just becomes something very challenging for kids. Just imagine for 4 years, 8 or 9 years old kids have to wake up by around early morning 5 and go to school, and the whole day because of there's no enough space. So the whole day he have to stay in the house, but the evening he need to go back to the school. And then the teaching, the books and everything become very quite new for them. So that environment is something very challenging for children. So if ever there is someone can help or donate or something shelter, it will be very great that if we can able to help them for construction, maybe not really good one, but for school perspective. And the food also still, as I said, still in challenge. And then health, there's no health care. They are overpopulated or they are overcrowded and gathering and in a place where closely, and then there is no health management or even some of basic counter medication are available. So when they have some kind of sickness, it's become so much challenge for them. And then, of course, some of nurses are available or midwifery also have gone through for CDM and coming with them, but they don't have any kind of medicines or things with them because they don't have income. Okay, even they try to buy it, but all the refugee they cannot afford to buy unless someone can provide for them. Only in that way we can do something for health system. So, and then again, as I said, they are overcrowded. So imagine teenage people are all are together there. I think in future it may happen some unnecessary stuff that we don't want to be happen. So we need what? We need education. What kind of education? Health education, sex education, and also right education, human right and all. Because if they don't know those things, how can they prevent themselves? How can they treat themselves? So all kind of things, like kind of education that can be a benefit for them, that would be very much need for them
who are living in Mizoram. But again, Mizoram government, we really appreciate, we're really thankful and gratitude for their kind heart and then concern for and the love for us. But of course, they also don't have much of income. They are not great at a wealthy state. So all they can do for us is that providing us a place and then providing us some security, which means that the military cannot come inside to Mizoram. That's what
Sure.
they can do for us for now.
Sure. This is really a devastating portrait that you're depicting. It's apocalyptic, really. You're talking about the complete breakdown of all aspects of a society, and a society that's been repressed for decades before this. And even as these services break down, you have an active enemy in your midst who's raining down hellfire from above on vulnerable people unable to defend themselves. And there's just these people are completely defenseless and without almost any support, just trying to defend themselves in some kind of way, and on the run, trying to live in some kind of safety, to say nothing about normalcy. Looking at actual numbers, do you have any sense of how many people are on the run and how many people are in IDP camps and how many are settling in Mizoram? Do you have any rough estimate of that?
Rough estimates for in refugee in Mizoram, now we are more than 60. We are reaching to 100,000 crossing soon. We're going to cross. And then inside, inside IDP, we are more now. We are become more than 200 inside. And then also, in other way to say that when you say about this IDP and refugee, we are saying we are numbering of who are right now currently living in IDP camp and who are living in refugee camp. But most of the village are not secure. They don't feel secure. So they just in there, but their heart and their minds never, how do you call that? Feeling secure themselves. So every day when we're going to run, that's what they feel. So if you visit in this time in the village, some of village you will see in their house, there's ready packed for their material that when something happens, they will run it. So they pack things that for ready, so that they will not waste your time for packing things. So, across Chin State, none of us have secure, none of us protected enough. So I would say that most out of 100%, I would say 80% is still we are like IDP and refugee. Just a matter that some of them run away, some of them are not. But the feeling are same.
And it's really devastating, especially when you look at when one contrasts the level of support that's been given to Ukraine and the struggles and the hardships that they're going through. You're talking about 100,000 refugees, IDPs, that are just left to fend for themselves and have so little outside support and so little attention of the world's capacity to care and to engage in this mass exodus of people that are that have no way to defend themselves against an evil that will do anything to them. And so along those lines, I'm wondering, you referenced earlier in our talk, you referenced what happened to That Lang, the almost complete destruction of that Chin city. I think it might be worth spending a little bit more time there. That happened a few months ago, so I think maybe in the memory it's not as fresh as some of the other terrible events and current conditions that are going on. From my understanding, and correct me if I'm mistaken, because you're much closer to the events, the situation in Mindat, followed by the situation in That Lang, have been some of the two most devastating incidences that have happened to Chin State in the past year. Truly, truly horrific. And not only have these things happened and been so damaging and so absolutely terrible, but they just simply haven't been reported on. They haven't been really known in the detail that they should be. And so I know that you were very involved in Dalang and supporting the relief effort there and in talking to people about what they were going through. We were in touch at the time. And I should also mention that our nonprofit Better Burma sent donations to your effort there, as well as we've allocated donations from Better Burma to all kinds of programs throughout Chin State, including Mizoram. And as you referenced a moment ago, calling for foreign listeners and others to be able to support the Chin people. We definitely want to encourage that. If there's any Chin organizations that people are already giving to, that's wonderful. If anyone would like to give a donation to Better Burma and to earmark the Chin cause and to your organization specifically, and make sure to get those funds to the great work that you're doing. So I want to make sure listeners know about that. But getting back to Thailand, can you take us back and just give us a bit more detail, a bit more color about what actually happened there and some anecdotes? I know that you were in touch with many residents of the town, and so you learned quite a bit of detail about what they were going through and what happened during those terrible days. So for listeners that don't know anything about that never heard of Thailand, or even those who maybe saw a few Facebook posts, but all they saw was just a plume of smoke rising from a hilly residence area and didn't know much more than that. Can you lay out some more detail as to what happened there and why, and what the result has been?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So before mentioning of that, one thing that I almost forgot. So let me point it out back to refugees situation in India. I almost forgot. So let me mention on that firstly. So in India, some of village, as I said, they are villagers, a community, but a small village, but they are very much open and they welcome for refugees. So one of village, and their household is only 35 household, and the population was like less than 300 population. That residents or that villages, and now they are hosting. Just imagine they are only 30 households, but now they are hosting about 50 plus household, which are about 800 population. 500 above population, which almost double than them. The hoster, they are hosting even much bigger than their population, or even more than their household. Then how could they take care of to them? It's become a big question. It's a really challenge. So now when I said refugee, in other way to say that not only refugee become problem now, even the community itself have facing so much trouble, because they are a little town, a little village. And then so in other way to you can picture is that they are a little village. So one of their water source could be small, their water source, and then their lively style like farming and everything can be small. But now immediate or like suddenly huge people come and gather with them. So how are they going to manage their water issue? How are they going to manage their food, their farms and their gardens? Just imagine that. So now it's really, really, we have in difficult situations that I think the international should be able to understand and picture for that. So thank you. That I just would like to leave a point out for refugee situation. And now going back to your questions to in Chin State. Firstly, to picture of where the city is that in Chin State, the Hakka is very much center. Hakka is the capital city of Chin State. It is so much center for Chin State. So in Hakka, north, and in Chin State, we can divide it into north and south. Southern part of Chin and then northern part of Chin State. So in Hakka, northern part are Phlam, Dinding, Twinza, and then Tantlang. They are northern part. And the southern part is the Mutupi Mindat, Kamplet, Bulawa. These are the southern part. And then Hakka is so much center compared to all 9 townships in Chin State. And then one of the nearest township from Hakka is the Tantang. The Tantang is which burned down almost entire of town. And then after Tantang, if you go some more there, and you will find this is after Tantang. If you go more, then this already closing more to border of India. And then this is where also our Chin National Army or Chin National Forces have based their camps. So military, why they wanted to attack this one? Because of they also wanted to attack our army. But they cannot do it. But then again, this is very near to Hakka. So in Hakka is capital city where the military puts most of their troops across Chin State. If you look at, because they are the Hakka is the capital city, and then from Hakka, Tantlang is very near. It's like if I'm not make mistake, I think it by bus, by car, it's 1 to 2 hours drive. I think away from Hakka to Tantlang, so it's very near. And then in Tantlang, of course, they wanted to make sure that the people of Tantlang are afraid, so that when this military wanted to go to this border side, they can go easily. But Tantlang CDF are there, and then other like Zopay and Lautu CDF are there. So for them, this traveling is kind of challenging. So that also, I think, my perspective of view is that is why they make sure that they make it something for Tantlang, so that the people of Chin will be afraid, so that they can be, their transportation will be much easier. That's why they attack heavily, and then this, make sure this become ashes. And in that time, no one thought that this military would do such massive attack to civilians, because they know Tantlang is civilian who are living in there. And then you just imagine yourself, you are sleeping in your house, in the very center, there are heavy weapon attacking to you, and then burning side of your houses. How you gonna feel it? It is like horrible. And when it's happened, first time that they attack the military, they shoot the heavy from their camp to Tantlang, and then of course house start to burn down, and then the youth, before no one run away, and then like second, third, like 5 house burned, so everybody in the city came out, and then they bring water, whatever. Of course, there's no other things, just the people themselves, they come and then try to stop the fire. And in that time, a pastor who also helping the youth, and the military come in the evening, who are trying to stopping the water. Military come and shoot them, and then in that situation, our pastor passed away. And then how brutal they are! They kill our pastor. Not only that, they cut his finger because he wear gold, because he's married. So because of when we married, we have we exchanged the ring. He's wearing on that one, and they cut it just to take his ring. And then even never say of any word of sorry to the family that they have killed. And then they don't stop. They continuously shoot and burning down to one by one, house by house. And after, the people all start to afraid and threatening, because they never thought that they will really do to them in that way. So no choice. They have to run their house. They have to leave. And then, even yourself, just imagine that, just to make it clear. Let's say you are a single boy, and then let's say you are a student, and then you study, you stay in a boarding house in 1 year. And then after 1 year, you want to go back to home. And then when you take out your stuff, your materials, your belonging in that little room that you live for 1 year, I can tell you that it will be at least 3 or 4 suitcase or a bag full of your material, just single, just yourself in a little room for 1 year. But still, you will be having so much of belonging. Just imagine for family living in household, a family living in that house for many many years, or decades, and how many material they can have, but they have no choice. They have to leave them all. Only they can do is that 1, 2 clothes that they have to wear, and then some of important paper or money, or some of maybe if they have jewelry. But I don't think that they can bring their blankets, their bed, or whatever their belonging, etc. in that house. But everything just become ash. And until today, the military never say sorry or make never statement that they have done something wrong. But still, they blaming to the people of Tantlang. But they are the one actually who are suffer and who run away from their house. They have built their own house for how many years they have struggled to make one house for their house. I mean, for them. But just one night or just a minute, everything burned down and become ashes. Not only that, they are threatened and they are, even killing them, and then they need to run away from their house. Even they need to leave their land where they live for how many decades, how many years they are being, but still the military complain or blaming to them, not to his own troop, his own brutal military, but he's still blaming to the people of Tantlang. Just imagine. So now the people of Tantlang, entire of the city, entire of the town, become empty now, and they all left, and then running after to their their relative home or house, or running to the border and become homeless. And then they need to start their life from zero. And now most of them most of them become homeless because of military burned down their houses in Tantlang. And now most of them are in border of India. And then, of course, and lastly to say that they burn down of their house. Is it finished? No. When the parents have a little of their assets that they plan for their kids to study, now everything is go to the ash. They cannot afford, so their children cannot go to school, and they are living in the forest with a little tarpaulin wrapping, and then they even not sure that what can happen tomorrow, and even they don't have nothing to do because they cannot work, so they have no income. So if someone comes and give them food, then they will eat. Unless they don't get, then they have to be there with hunger. That's all they have now. That's entire of one town in Chin State. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just horrific. I don't know what to say, and it's just appalling that in the year when we're living, that a military can destroy an entire civilian population. And not only is there so little support, but there's even so little awareness that that's happening outside. And that's why here we're trying to do the most we can to be able to get that information and news out, to let people know what has happened, what is happening, so that there's greater awareness. The last question I want to ask you is, looking at the Chin ethnicities and all the diversity within the different Chin ethnic and linguistic and geographic groups, there's one group within Chin I've heard about that I'm trying to understand better. This is the Zomi. I've heard, and I don't quite understand what the Zomi are doing, what their objective is. On one hand, I've heard that they're trying to push for their own autonomous region. On the other hand, I've also heard that they may be supportive of the Tamadan, that they're fighting other Chin groups. I don't really have a clear understanding, so I'm wondering if you can tell me a bit more about the Zomi Chin and what's been happening with that.
Okay. Yeah. So in Chin State, as we have said, we have many languages, also tribe across Chin State. But when come to according to the government, we are divided into 9 township, and then before we have 2 district, but now it's added, so we become like 4 district. So in there, Zomi is under, and they are in Dedim Township. So before going back to your question, also it's happened that last year in Zomi, Zomi is under this Dedim Township. So what we have is that military rape a young lady who just gave birth. After she gave birth like a month in front of her own husband. Military comes and capture and rape it. How crucial they are! Just imagine that. Just imagine yourself, your wife are raping in front of you. How you gonna feel it? But still, military would never condemn to his people, but still blaming to the people of us, the people of Chin, the people of Myanmar. That's what military is. So okay, this is something that I just would like to point out again, how they do to us. They kill us, they torture us, they rape us, and they wanted to wipe out our Chin people. But we will not stop. We're going to fight for our own land and for our people. But then sadly in Zomi, as I said, in Zomi there is a Dedim and we call Twinzang Township. So 2 are closely. And then what you say is that they are called Zara. They are not Zomi. They are Zara. They believe that themselves they are protecting for Zomi. And they believe that they are the one who love Zomi. And then in other way around to say is that they wanted to create their own autonomous territory. And then they want to live there. But they are not really majority, they are minority. But then to them, they don't have, how do you call this? Their Their mission and vision is just to have, like, they are very much, I would say, they're selfish. They only think for themselves. So to get for that, whatever they have chance, they are willing to take it. So if they're going to join with this SAC, and then maybe they will get what they want because of this military can give them. That's what they believe. So that is why they are attacking to their own people. In Zomi, we have Zara. There is Zara is the one that you say, and the one is we call Zoland PDF, and another ones we call, I forgot, wait, let me check. The name is something called, we call People Defense Army, PDA. They are all coming together to under Zomi. So, but they are joining and then working closely with the Chin people. In Chin, we call it in Chin. As of this, after a revolution happened in our Chin, we are planning, and then all Chin people are working together, and then to become more united, and they call CJDC, which is also known as a Chinland Joint Defense Committee. And then Chinland Joint Defense Committee is linking and working closely with CNF, and then most of CDF and Chin State, like most of the people use CDF, which means Chinland Defense Force. So for example, Hakka, they call it Chinland Defense Force Hakka. For Tantlang, Chinland Defense Force Tantlang. So all they come together and form CJDC. CJDC, Chinland Joint Defense Committee. And in there, they all are together, but except Zara. That is why the Chin people come together and they say that this Zara is not belonging to us. They are attacking us. They are not same with our uh, visions and missions, and they are who supporting to this this military. They are like terrorists because they are supporting to this brutal military. So they announce it. Recently, CJDC announced that Zara is terrorist group. They are not belong to Chin. They are not represent to Zombie. That's what they have said. And then lastly, I just would like to say that, yeah, um, we are humans. No matter where we are, we still come together. And then we need to help each other. And then I think the international community also have to aware of what's really happening inside Myanmar. Maybe in other way around to say that this is not something the international affair. This is something the internally affair. However, the world has to see and know that who these military are. They are terrorists. They are evil. So we need to wipe out. So if international help and then work with us and then cooperate with the people of Myanmar, and then if we can wipe out from the face of Myanmar this military, in the future the Myanmar people will be joyful, peaceful, and prosperity. Even Myanmar people become rich. I mean, when I say rich, doesn't really mean that the money. I mean in health and everything. We become very much in healthy lifestyle, and I think the world also, one part of the world is become blooming because we all are like flowers. So, but Myanmar is dying of a garden where all the flowers are dying and drying, and then the world have to understand, accept, and then have to pour out their love and their kindness to Myanmar people. So that once the Myanmar become blooming, that's also the beauty of Myanmar, not only for Myanmar, but for the good for people of entire of world. So I would like to really, really emphasize that please hear out the voice of Myanmar, because we need international help, cooperation. Maybe not in the military, not in the arm. I mean, not in the forces, but in also in sense of helping us through many ways that we can do. For example, I have said a while ago, we need a lot of shelter across Myanmar, Chin State. We need food because many of us are hungry in Myanmar because military are using four-cut policy. Because of that, we cannot access enough food and medicines and health. Most of us are dying just because we cannot able to reach out them. But just a simple of medicines or simple of this just even simple of antibiotic, most of people's life will be safe. But because of that lacking of transportation and money, I mean medicines, people are dying. So to stop mortality, to stop the poverty, to stop all this, we need international help. So you may help us in the food or shelter or medicine. Not only that, the military are trying to oppress us in education, because if we become educated, they cannot lead us, they cannot rule us. But if we become uneducated, they are easily to divide us and rule us, and then overthrow us. They can oppress us. So our new generation need education. So we need our kid to go to the school, and they have right to study. So these all are, you all can help us. Just one step of forward and listening us, and then if you do something for us, we'll really appreciate. So yeah, thank you so much, and then yeah, thank you for having me today. That's all I would like to say for today.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode in full. If you've gotten this far, then you've heard much of what this important guest has to say. And if you found their story of value, please consider taking a further step beyond just being a listener and become an active supporter. Any donation you provide is now being sent to Myanmar to help those being impacted by the current crisis. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are being impacted by the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Your donation will go to support a wide range of humanitarian missions, aiding those local communities who need it most. Donations are directed to such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, internally displaced person, IDP camps, food for impoverished communities, military defection campaigns, undercover journalists, monasteries and nunneries, education initiatives, the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies, COVID relief, and much more. We also make sure that our donation fund supports a diverse range of religious and ethnic groups across the country. We invite you to visit our website to learn more about past projects as well as upcoming needs. You can give a general donation or earmark your contribution for a specific activity or project you would like to support, perhaps even something you heard about in this very episode. All of this humanitarian aid work is carried out by our nonprofit mission, Better Burma. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is directed towards this fund. Alternatively, you can also visit the Better Burma website, betterburma.org. That's BETTERBURMA.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit cards. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either the Insight Myanmar or Better Burma websites for specific links to those respective accounts, or email us at info@betterburma.org. If you'd like to give in another way, please contact us. Thank you so much for your kind consideration and support.
fight for freedom.